Okay, next question. I really struggle to express my anger in healthy ways. Most of the time, I don't even know I'm feeling angry until it's too late and I've exploded. How do you deal with your anger? How can I express mine in a better way? Okay, the way that I deal with my anger is, number one, acknowledge that it has a purpose and that it's an important part of being a person. Most people hide their anger because they believe that anger is not appropriate. It's not an appropriate feeling, or there's something to be ashamed of if you do get angry. And that's not actually true, because there are times in your life that you need to get angry, and it's the completely appropriate response. So if you look at, let's look at a dog, and there's two dogs, and one of them is dominant, and the dog that's dominant is eating. And the other dog, who's submissive, they're really, really hungry, so they're trying to kind of creep into the food of the dominant dog. So what will the dominant dog do? They will growl probably at the other dog. Okay, so it's growling at the dog, and it's the other dog goes away for a bit but comes back and starts trying to creep to the bowl again. And the dominant dog is now growling and baring his teeth and making like a movement towards the other dog, and the other dog goes away. And then, but after a while, the other dog creeps back in and tries to, go to the dominating dog's food, and the dominating dog bites the other dog. Now, what's basically happened is that the dominating dog, tried to set boundaries, in a nice way or in a less aggressive way. It didn't work. It worked for a bit, but then it didn't work. Then they the situation happened again, and it really growled bared the teeth and growled at the other dog, and the other dog went away again for a bit, but then came back after a while, and then the last bit was that the dog got bitten, and now the dog doesn't come back. Here's a couple of lessons that we can take away from this situation. Number one, the dominant dog wasn't angry when there was no need to be angry. So the dog, unlike a lot of people, when they recognize that they're angry, they don't just let go of the anger. They don't acknowledge the anger and then let go of it. People tend to like to hold on to anger because they think it's inappropriate to show it. And as a result, oftentimes, if we're not modeled healthy anger when we're growing up, which is now I'm angry, and then once the situation is over, it's over. Now you're no longer angry. What happens is that we don't realize that there's a difference between being angry and not being angry. We just hold on to anger and hide it. And what happens with that is then that when we bring up our own children, if we don't show anger in a healthy way, then they end up being in that same situation, and so the generational problem continues. The other thing is too that what the dominating dog didn't do was continue to continue with the anger past the point of making the point. So they didn't overreact. They dealt with it when it needed to be dealing with, or it needed to be dealt with. And then when the situation was over, they moved on, but they were prepared to express their anger as it was necessary. So those are the two things for me to take away. One is anger is healthy because you're setting, not that you necessarily want to set boundaries from an angry space all the time, but initially that's what it's going to look like. You're not going to be graceful with it. It's going to look like you're an angry so-and-so. But what will happen is that people will actually start, they take notice and they start treating you differently because you're no longer this pushover. And the second thing is, once the anger is over and it's expressed, get on with it, get on with life, let go of the anger. So you recognize that anger is nothing to be ashamed of, but in fact, it's just a tool. It is just a tool. So that's how I deal with that. You were saying, how can I express mine in a better way? Number one, acknowledge that it's there. Number two, get clarity on what it actually is and which one of the four people within it actually is that is feeling angry. And number three, give that person within you what they need. So you're saying, okay, it's okay to be angry, and then which part of me is feeling angry, and then what does that part of me actually need from me right now? What is this anger trying to tell me that I need? Or what is this anger from my inner parent trying to tell her that what she needs? So it might be better boundaries with the inner children, and in that case you can now start learning better boundaries with your inner children. But please understand that you're not supposed to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. And it is a great mistake to think that just because somebody puts themselves forward in a way that appears to be perfect, it doesn't mean that they are, number one. And number two, if you have to pretend to be perfect, your life's going to be super difficult. Super difficult. So those are a couple of things to really remember. Some of you know that I've had a difficult couple of years with some losses last year, 4 significant losses last year, as well as the bushfires and the floods, and then the PTSD the year before. And I have some friends who are, who are still in that space of they need me to be perfect. They need me to be completely over whatever it is that I'm supposed to be completely over, or I shouldn't be sad, or I shouldn't be angry. I mean, anger is a really important part of grieving process, for example. People feel uncomfortable if you're not perfect, and that's okay. That's their problem. It's not, it's not my responsibility that they still feel like they should be perfect, that they still feel the pressure of having to be perfect, because it's those people who project onto you that you should be perfect that haven't actually really accepted themselves. And it's so important to try and make sure that you understand that nobody's perfect, and the people that you look up to, they're not going to be perfect either. If you think they should be perfect, they're going to let you down. Okay, it's just how it is. So really understand that anger is okay, and if you're around angry people, instead of taking it personally, if you ask them, if there's anything you can do for them, instead of going like, I don't want to be around your anger, what happens is that you create a lot deeper level intimacy, and you begin to really build very meaningful relationships. But as long as there's this almost like this cloud over you that you all have to be perfect, then it's just not going to be. You're going to live a very tiring, exhausting, difficult life, because you have to put up a show that's not truly who you are.